Hope everyone is doing well and you're ready to jump into Chapter 1, Introduction to Essentials of Lifespan Development. I really enjoy this text and see how important it is if you are going to be around humans at any point in your life, which sounds like a funny thing, but if you are going to be a teacher or if you are currently in a relationship with another human or you plan on raising children, all of these things are really important to know. Now, I'm going to be lecturing from the viewpoint of an educator and someone that is married and is in a relationship, and from someone that is a mother. And so you can kind of see those viewpoints here, but all of this information is really good to know if you are planning on being in one of those roles in your life. So, things that we need to remember, especially for educators, is that every life is completely different. And when we're looking at different stages and theories, it helps us understand the people around us better, which will make us better at the relationships in our lives, better parents, better children, and for sure, better educators. When we are looking at the lifespan perspective, most humans develop close to the same way. Most humans will walk around the same time and they will play, they will learn, they will socialize, all of these things roughly around the same point in life. No matter what society they're being raised in, most humans hit these different developmental stages around the same point of time. And so it makes it a little bit easier for us to study humans. Now, the better that you understand, the better that you can serve the populations that you are going to teach or interact with. And so it just really helps prepare us if we can learn about the development that humans go through, and it helps prepare us for our future classrooms and positions. So, the importance of studying lifespan development, it will definitely help you learn about your future students, learn about your future development, which is kind of exciting because part of this, as you're going through, you're going to read certain life stages and you're going to think that is the age group that I really want to work with. If it is an infant room at a preschool or a daycare, all the way up to higher ed, that's going to help you decide, hey, this is the group of people that I'm interested in working with. In some ways, it might even be an education journey on, oh, this helps me understand myself or my peers better, or maybe it'll help you understand your parents or grandparents a little bit better. So if we are looking through here, we can see, of course, that the upper boundary of human lifespan is about 122 years, which is pretty crazy. And our average life expectancy is 79 years, and that's risen as time has gone by. And of course, it's risen due to technology and cleanliness and things like that. When we are looking at a lifespan perspective, we can see that development happens all the way throughout life, and that it has lots of different components that goes through it. That as we grow and we develop, sometimes it's at a faster pace and sometimes it's at a slower pace. That we have a change in how we learn. I can say that I used to be very much a doer in learning, and now if I can see it, the way that I learn is a little bit different. And then, of course, our development is created through biological systems, socio-cultural systems, and individual factors. All of these things are going into what makes us humans. And as we look at that and through the classroom, it helps us to decide how each human is different and how we can specifically cater and meet those students' needs. So, types of contextual influences is the idea that people are influenced typically in similar ways for that normal influences. You're going to start school. Maybe you're going to go through puberty or menopause. You are going to experience your first pet, your first death. Now, there are some type of influences that happen to cohorts of people. The Great Depression, those people that were alive at that point as a child experienced the Great Depression differently than maybe a parent. And so they have those experiences that they can rely on that I cannot, and most likely you cannot. And then, of course, there's non-formative life experiences, and these are things that happen that maybe not to everyone, and they're kind of unusual. If a parent died, winning the lottery, all those things are different, and they influence people in completely different ways. As we are moving through here, we can study lifespan and how it affects others, and it gives us insight on how it shapes people's personalities. And so we can look at different parts of this lifespan perspective. We can look at the health and well-being, the lifestyle that some people live, their psychological state that affects who they are and who they are becoming. Parenting and education. How was a certain person parented? Did they live in a home that the mother and father was divorced? Did they only have one family member that was raising them? Were they being raised by a grandparent? Look at their education. Were they homeschooled, private school, public school? Was schooling not even an option? But all of those things is going to go into how someone is formed. We can keep looking through it, and we can see that society can impact people. We can also see that culture can impact who a person is. We can look at cross-cultural studies, so the comparing the aspects of cultures, and then see how they are alike and how they are different. We can look at someone's ethnicity and help us to better understand them as a person. We can look at their socioeconomic status. We can look at their gender. We can look at social policies that's going on while they're being raised. We can also look at technology. Really simple. In the 1950s, TV was being introduced, and now there's so much more. My children could get away with not watching TV all day because there's so many other technologies that they would rather be on. And so we have to look at what things are helpful, what things are harmful. But as we look through technology and social policy, gender, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, culture, their health and parenting and education, all of these things is what makes up a person. And so you can look, take an elementary school classroom, a high school classroom, and the people themselves might look fairly similar, but when you go into all of these different points on this lifespan perspective, we can see how different everyone is and how their past makes up their future, and how it can really change maybe the way that people react, or the emotions or triggers that they can have in their life. As we are looking at the nature of development, we can see a couple different things here. Two things that I really want you to know is the process is the study of change, and we're going to kind of talk about different processes and how it's the study of different types of changes. And then there's also periods, and periods are time frames in a person's life characterized by certain features. And so we're kind of looking at all of these different things again and seeing how humans develop and how they become who they are. And when I say that, I don't mean when they become 18 they are who they are, but over the course of their life, seeing and trying to understand people through all of these different processes and periods that they have lived through. So when we look at this, we can see that one of the processes that we can look at is biological processes. So changes in an individual's physical nature, genetic makeup that a person has gotten specifically from their parents. We can look at cognitive processes, how someone thinks and the language that they use. We can look at their socio-emotional processes, the different emotions or experiences that you have and how you react to them as you age changes. We can also see how complicated this is, how these processes are completely intertwined. And an example that the text gives you is how when a baby smiles in response to a parent's touch. This is a perfect example of how we can see how the biological, the cognitive, and the socio-emotional processes are all intertwined. Biologically, the infant or the baby is feeling human touch. Cognitively, they're understanding that that touch was intentional by the parents and it was meant to communicate something. And then the socio-emotional piece of it has that baby smiling because they're feeling a positive emotion. Now that's a really complicated view of just one action, but again, that is something that we can look at when a child is acting a certain way, or a human or an adult or a college student or a professor is acting a certain way. We can say, okay, what is behind all of these processes? And we can kind of break it down. The text does a really nice job, and we're going to see it as we go through the semester. We're going to explore all of these different periods of development. Again, so if you ever plan on having children, if you ever were a child, if you are going into education, if you're planning on growing into a late adulthood, all of these different things can apply very easily to your life. And so when we look at periods of development, we're going to talk in the future a little bit about the different patterns of aging that we can have, because we can have normal aging, and that's when we are just living life strong, and then we start to slightly decline in our 80s. We can have a pathological aging, and sometimes that can be brought on by chronic disease or Alzheimer's disease, and that is when the decline happens a little bit earlier than we typically see. And then we have successful aging, and that is maintaining your way of life longer than maybe your peers or what's expected you to. And so just like children's development, it doesn't always happen in lockstep with each other. And a whole classroom of children, or cohort of children, is not going to develop exactly at the same path. We are also not going to age at exactly the same path. For significance of age, there's lots of different ways that we can look at age. We can look at it as a chronological number. We can look at it in terms of your biological age, so like how healthy you are. Your psychological age, how well can you adapt to changes around you, job changes, moves, your family shifting or changing over time. And then your social age, are you lonely? Are you connected? Can you fill some of those social roles that society is expecting you? And so even when we talk about, in the previous slide, aging, that is kind of a slippery definition, because what exactly is aging and what does that number mean? This next part is really important for you guys as educators, because we want to know, how do we understand others? As soon as you get in a classroom or in a relationship, or when you become parents, you're going to want to know, how do I understand this other person? Because it's really important to figure someone else out, to have a positive experience with them. And so one way that we can do that is to look back at others, what they have studied. And learn from past social sciences, learn from other past people in fields that have studied human behavior, and then it is our job to figure out how can we apply that in the classroom. This list right here is a list of all the main theories of development that the textbook talks about. And what I'm really going to want you to do is in your discussion piece for this week is I want you to find a TV clip, a TV show. How I Met Your Mother is really good. Simpsons are really good. Big Bang Theory is really good. I'm going to show you an example, and on that example is a specific clip from Big Bang Theory that is going to speak to one of these theories, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. But as we go through, just make sure that you are being cognizant of, okay, I need to really kind of understand these moving forward for your teaching licensure tests, for quizzes that you might see at the end of this week, or unit tests here in a couple weeks. All of these theories are really important to know as educators and then to apply to our future classrooms. So our main theories of development, some academic language that I would like for you to really know the differences is between the idea of a theory and a hypothesis. So a theory itself is a set of ideas that helps to explain a certain phenomena, okay? And then the hypothesis itself is the specific assertions and predictions that can be tested to determine their accuracy. So just a quick example, a theory is mentoring at-risk youth can help them. And then my hypothesis could be that as a prediction that at-risk youth will increase either their grades or their attendance in school or their behavior through the use of mentoring programs. And you're going to see this academic language of theories and hypotheses kind of floating around over the next couple weeks. And I just wanted to make sure that you understood them. So we're going to look at a long list of different types of theories, and within those different types of theories there are theorists that fit kind of in those categories. So our first group of theories that we're going to talk about is psychoanalytical theories, and as we're looking at that, we can really see that this type of theory describes development primarily as unconscious and heavily colored by emotion. One that the textbook really speaks about is Freud, and he really believed that those that talked about their problems could have restorative psychological health. And so you can see that for this specific psychoanalytical theory, that their early experiences with parents were extensively shape their development. Freud really emphasized sexual insights, and he even founded psychosexual stages. He believed that your basic personality was shaped within the first 5 years, and motivation for humans was sexual. On the other hand, we have Erikson. Erikson, still in this psychoanalytic theories, Erikson really believed that the motivation is more social and reflects a desire to associate with people. And he really thought that, unlike Freud, who thought it was the first 5 years, Erikson believed that development happens throughout a lifetime. Erikson also goes into the stages of human development, which I've always thought was very interesting. There are 8 of them, and each has a crisis that must be resolved. And these crises, in each one, there's kind of a turning point. One way that can be chosen by the individual is an increased vulnerability, and the other is an enhanced potential. So you can kind of see the positive or the negative or the increased vulnerability or the enhanced potential in each one of those 8 stages. And those 8 stages are loosely connected to years that that a human will go through. So when we look at this psychoanalytic theories, emphasis are on developmental framework, family relationships, and unconscious aspects of the mind. Criticisms where people find that this theory might be lacking, there's lack of scientific support, too much emphasis on the sexual underpinnings, and again, that's Freud, and then image of people that is too negative. When we look at cognitive development, we can see Piaget, and Piaget has 4 stages of cognitive development. Now, this is kind of different than our psychoanalytical theories. This cognitive development theory breaks it down into how we organize our experiences. And there is organization and adaptation, which are 2 of his main key ideas. And you can see Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development here just by looking at that. And as they go through each stage, how they organize and adapt new information changes. And then there again is loose ages that goes with the stages. Other cognitive theories is Vygotsky. Vygotsky emphasized how culture and social interaction guided our cognitive development. He believed that we actively construct or build our knowledge, and a lot of times that's done through social interaction or the culture that we live in. Both of those things are very important. But he did not really believe in stages as much as in an increasing capacity to learn. So you can see that even within the cognitive theories, they change a little bit. A recap on the cognitive theories. There's an emphasis on positive view of development, a lot less negative than the last one. Emphasis on the active construction or building of understanding. And then some criticism of this learning theory is that skepticism about the pureness of Piaget's stages. Some people don't buy it. And then a little attention to individual variations, because with humans there are definitely variations. Now, when we look in behavioral and social cognitive theories, I can look specifically at Skinner's operant conditioning. And then this operant conditioning is the idea that consequences of a behavior produce change. And I'm sure we have talked about this in other college courses. And this is the one that I am going to use when I talked about the assignment that I want you to observe and then discuss on a discussion board. So on our discussion board, I'm going to post a clip of Penny and Leonard from Big Bang Theory, and how specifically, it's not Penny and Leonard, it is Penny and, I forget the other main character's name. You'll see it in the clip. But how the male in the storyline, I can't believe I can't remember his name, is using chocolates to change the tone of voice of Penny. And so what I'm going to do in that discussion board is I'm going to put a link for that YouTube clip, and then I'm going to describe how this is an example of Skinner's operant conditioning. So that's just something to think about as we're going through here. What's a TV show clip that has reminded you of one of these things? This is an opportunity to really connect your life and your learning, and it really just opens up the doors for your brain to say, hey, you know what? I have actually seen this in person, and I can see how this is seen outside of the textbook or outside of Canvas or SmartBook. Let's keep going. Bandura's social cognitive theory. Cognitive processes have important links with the environment and the behavior, and he was really big on imitation or modeling is how we learn. So when we look at behavioral and social cognitive theories, again, we can recap here. We can see that an emphasis is on scientific research and environmental determinants of behavior. Some criticisms, though, are that there's little emphasis on cognition in Skinner's view, and an inadequate attention paid to developmental changes. Okay, we're marching on here. Our ethological theory, we're going to see that behavior is strongly influenced by biology or evolution. This Konrad Lorenz, he is really someone that investigated and the importance of imprinting. And he worked with geese, but we can see how this is important with humans. And then John Bowlby studied how the attachment to a caregiver affects us through our lifespan. And so if there is a positive attachment, how that changes us as humans. And if there is a negative relationship attachment there, how that changes us. These move a little bit quicker. The emphasis here is that this ethological theory includes a focus on the biological and evolutionary basis of development, and of course the use of careful observations. Criticism, there's too much emphasis on that biology piece, and the critical and sensitive period concepts might be too rigid for the people who are kind of criticizing these theories. Next, we have, I can never say this person's name, Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory of development. And the difference between this ecological is that it has factors that have to deal with the environment. And so development reflects the influence of several environmental systems, and you can see in that graphic that there are 5 environmental systems that really affect someone's development. An emphasis on them is that contributions include the systematic examination of macro and micro dimensions, and you can read more about that in your text. And attention to connections between environmental systems is really important, and again, this emphasis on a range of social contexts besides family influences child development. For example, like the neighborhood can influence you, your religion or your school or the workplace can influence you as you grow and mature throughout your lifespan. Criticisms is that it's an inadequate attention to biological factors and little emphasis on cognitive factors. So this leads perfectly to this eclectic theoretical orientation. And this idea is that everyone may not follow each one of these theories to a T, that you might pick a little bit from Piaget or Bruner or Erikson, that you're going to just pick and pull from the ones that make most sense to you, and that is kind of how you get your own theory of education. There is 2 slides here that has a really nice chart on exactly how you can look at the different theories and then how it can compare and contrast them. I hope this small little lecture has been helpful. After you have completed this lecture, I would like for you to think back and write for me why educators need to use this. Why do we need to understand lifespan and development to become a better advocate for our students in our future classrooms? That can be submitted on Canvas. As always, if you need anything, please email me and I will get back to you that day.